Are you trying different supplements, maybe topical creams or treatments or ear medications, and you're just like, why is the yeast not going away from my pet? Who here has been there? Where you're like, they have a yeast infection, they smell like Doritos, they're licking their paws, their skin is changing colors. Let me know if that sounds like you. Drop a comment down below if you are battling the same thing over and over again for your pets and you're like, this is not working. There's something going on and I don't know what to do. I promise you, you are not alone, but this is what we're talking about today. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. I'm a holistic integrative veterinarian who's on a mission to make sure that you, as the amazing pet parent that you are, aren't collecting a supplement graveyard, are actually finding the root cause of why those symptoms are there. And we're going to talk about a really popular, common topic that so many pets are dealing with today. And you might be dealing with that with your dogs. We're going to talk about dogs specifically. A lot of these are same principles and can be applied to your cats if you feel like your pet is dealing with a yeast issue. Now, here's the thing. I'm here to tell you, not every pet has a yeast infection. So I hear it all the time. I see it all the time online. And I don't blame you guys if you're like, I have a yeast issue. I see they're like itchy red paws. We're having ear infections. And we need to talk about this because you may be barking up the wrong tree by trying to clear a yeast infection when in reality, we miss the reason for the problem in the first place. So if you're excited, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you are resonating with this topic, and please share it with your friends, share it with other pet parents that are also dealing with itchy skin and chronic ear infections and all sorts of problems. Really, really important that we share this information with them because so many pet parents are going back and forth to the vet clinic for this exact issue and they're not getting the results. And it's because we asked the wrong question. And so yeast, yes, yeast, malassezia is the technical term for yeast, can be a problem. Now, yeast is a secondary overgrowth. Yeast is not the primary condition. So we can have a yeast problem, but we have to stop thinking that every time our pet is itchy, that it is a yeast overgrowth. And this could be why you change the food and you're like, well, they're not feeding a lot of carbohydrates. Like we got them off the kibble diet and you're avoiding like all carbohydrates, right? I see this all the time and nothing changes. And you're like, why is it not going away? Like the ear infections too. We're going to there is a reason why that is there. And so this is where we need to look deeper. And there's common reasons why this occurs, and we need to talk about them. So if you are smelling like a yeast infection in the ear, make sure you go to the vet and have an ear swab done versus just blasting the body with antifungals. And I mean this from an herbal perspective and also from a conventional medication perspective too. This is really important. We get into this mindset where we have to kill everything, like bacteria, fungi, like we need to take it out. And that is not the approach we want to take. So make sure you go to the vet and get that ear swab and have them look under the microscope to even see if there is an overgrowth of yeast. Keeping in mind those yeast, those little buds of yeast came to be because it's a secondary problem. There was something else that triggered that overgrowth of yeast and bacteria to occur in the first place. So once again, I'm going to repeat it again for the people in the back. Not every itchy dog has a yeast overgrowth. Now, what we need to look at is, okay, well, why? Why is this issue? Why do we see itchiness? What is connected? And we tend to think like old school way of thinking about allergies and itchiness is like, oh, it's the skin. There's a problem with the skin. And so we tend to use like topicals. We use steroids to calm down inflammation. It could be an environmental allergy. And we're like, oh, we can go on, allergy medications. And we completely miss the causes and the reasons for why that problem is there in the first place. Now, there can be a genetic component to allergies. So keep that in mind. Pets can be born with this problem, especially if they come from like the maternal line. So their moms had allergies. They're more likely to have allergies because of the genetic component. And there's research around this topic. Here's the key thing that I want you to keep in mind. Whenever I see studies around genetics are like a dimmer switch where we can either turn it up or we can turn it down. Right? Who has like a dimmer switch in their like house, like for the lights? When I talk about a dimmer switch, right? We're like moving it down, we're turning it up bright, we can turn it off. And that is exactly how the genes work in your pet's body. So the way we can manipulate gene expression, there's entire fields of study around this. Nutrigenomics, which is the process of using food to manipulate the way genes are expressed. And then, of course, our epigenetics. That is going to be the environmental components of how those genes are expressed, whether things are turned up or they're turned down. So just because we have like, oh, well, they came from a line of animals, so like golden retrievers, your terriers, like your bully breeds, they tend to come with like issues, right? And you're like, oh, well, they're just going to get this. We need to shift that mindset. Yes, there might be a predisposition for them developing these things, and they might have a white coat. We know that white coats can also predispose them to that too. Genes, right, are manipulating that and going to play a part. Animals that were fed kibble diets when they were, in utero, with the maternal, the mom eating kibble diets can predispose them to allergies. But just because something happened, remember, you have the power to create the change that you wish to see. If we have severe allergies, we may not get 100% resolution, but there are key factors that we need to keep looking at. Really, really important. And so this is something where we need to look at, okay, well, what's actually going on in the body? And this is where people get stuck. They're not asking why the yeast is there or why the itchiness is there. Very important question to always be asking. I should probably rename myself Dr. Katie Y. So it's definitely something that we always want to be asking, because we need to figure out, okay, we have itchy skin. We need to treat the secondary infections, but what else could be going on? And there's a lot of different theories out there now where we can look at, there's inflammation dysregulation. So with inflammation dysregulation, this is usually linked to when we feed processed pet foods. So when I talk about processed pet foods, these are going to be things that are like high carb diets. These are going to be your kibble diets. We need at least 50 to 60% carbohydrates to even create the kibble through the extruding process. And what happens is that these types of diets, just like they do in people, can increase the insulin levels in the body. Now, what happens when we have too high of insulin? Well, if that happens for too long, we're going to have blood sugar issues. Insulin's really important for managing blood sugar levels, blood glucose. That leads to more inflammation in the body. That can lead to things like weight gain. Over time, that can lead to things like diabetes, the conditions. And once again, we get stuck in this vicious cycle of the body continually producing more inflammatory mediators that then increases the amount of inflammation that then can reside in the skin, because of the skin is connected to everything else, right? We have the circulatory system, and if we have a lot of inflammatory mediators circulating through, that can create ear infections, inflammation in the ears, inflammation in the skin, inflammation in the paws, inflammation in the anal glands. And so we see that, and we're like trying to knock out yeast, and we didn't change the diet, we're going to have an issue. Now, in Chinese medicine, this is called damp heat. So when you see this and your pet's on maybe a processed diet, switch them over to a less processed diet. So we want to reduce the amount of insulin and that's being pumped out, that's then creating that inflammation. So using things like a lightly cooked diet that has less carbohydrates in it, that's going to be a higher protein. Using raw food diet. So these are the animals that you see everyone like. You might be like one of them, like you have a pet who has itchy skin and ear problems, and you're like, they have yeast, like, and you're stuck in kind of like that setting, and you read about someone that's changed the diet and it resolves everything. Who here has ever like experienced that, right? You see on a Facebook group or a post and you're like, huh, they changed the diet, but wait, I changed the diet and it didn't change. You probably didn't have this damp heat condition. And this is where I still recommend changing it because it's going to produce less inflammation anyways. But if you're stuck in this camp where you've changed the diet and you're like, it didn't work, your pet most likely doesn't have damp heat. We're not stuck in that inflammation dysregulation where the immune system's like, I can't respond to this. I don't know how to handle this. This is where now we have an immune, not inflammation, immune dysregulation. So when we think about the immune system, we need to look a bit deeper. The immune system is really important for how we react to foreign things in the body. To if we get a bacterial infection or a viral infection, we are relying on our immune system to respond appropriately to get rid of those things, take it out, right? We need it to like kill. That's what the purpose is, right? If we get a bacterial infection, a yeast infection, if the immune system is doing its job, it'll help resolve it. That can involve some inflammation short term. We call that acute inflammation. It's a good thing. It helps heal the body. When we get a wound, we see a bit of redness, irritation, right? The skin gets all red. That's bringing those immune cells to that area to help it heal. Really, really important. Now, the problem with immune dysregulation is that this is kind of like an allergic type reaction, right? So this is where if changing the diet does not help once again, so if you've changed the diet, we need to shift the way we're looking at it and go, okay, what other components are interconnected? Because the body is all interconnected. There is a reason. Now, just I saw that brief comment about, okay, what about genetics, right? Remember, genes are the dimmer switch. We can turn them up, we can turn them down. We need to start looking for the other root causes that might be at play. Now, this is where a lot of times you change the diet, doesn't work. Your vet's like, oh, well, this is the time for Apoquel, Cytopoint, steroids, immunosuppressives, and then also to specialized diets like novel protein diets and your like hydrolyzed diets, right? Where they're broken down so that the body potentially is not reacting to it. Here's the thing. If you don't have a damp heat condition, it may work, it may not. We have to go deeper. Now, here's what's really, really important. Going back to the immune system. If the immune system is overreacting, we also know that the immune system closely works with the gut. So this is where, if you haven't heard of the microbiome, it's really important that you're listening up because that microbiome is controlling a lot of different things. And this is where, yes, I see you doing a lot of these leaky gut protocols and nothing is working because we have to look at, okay, what other factors are going on? And if you haven't looked at the microbiome and the gut, this is one factor. We're going to talk about a couple others that we need to be looking at. The immune system's closely connected. Now, so we have the immune system extending down. I did a recent talk at the Thriving Pet Expo, and I related it to like a beautiful garden where we have your pet's body is like the plant. The roots are extending down into the soil. The soil is like the gut health, the microbiome. So those roots are extending down. They're actually interacting with the gut lining and the different layers. We have the epithelial cells, we have a mucus layer, we have all the microorganisms that make up the microbiome that are going to help break down things like fiber. And then they're producing post-metabolites. These metabolites are things like hormones, neurotransmitters, vitamins, minerals, things like that that are going to hopefully help the body be nourished. Now, the problem is with so many of these pets, especially if you're dealing with a chronic health issue, is that this microbiome isn't healthy. The ecosystem isn't healthy. So that gut lining can get inflamed. And what happens is so these microbes are trying really hard, but we might have an overgrowth of things like E. coli or Clostridium. And this is where microbiome testing with companies like Animal Biome, so Doggy Biome, Kitty Biome, is really important. So we can see, do we have what's called a dysbiosis, where we have an overgrowth of good versus bad bacteria? Because if we do, those that system is not going to be working well. And those microbes may actually be pumping out inflammatory mediators that aren't feeding that gut lining and are causing an immune system reaction. And now what's happening too, if we have inflammation in that gut lining, they should be nice and tight, held together. Those gut epithelial cells, they separate because of the inflammation. And we have food, bacteria, toxins, particles passing through, and the immune system's right there. And then the immune system goes, they're going to do their job and they are going to react because it is a foreign particle. So whenever they see something foreign, they go, nope, that's not supposed to be here. They do their job. So we call it overreacting, but they're actually doing what they're supposed to. And so they start attacking it. And then we have more inflammation. The immune system gets more triggered. And because of the gut skin axis, there's all sorts of axes, all the connections, interrelatedness. We now have that inflammation circulate to the skin. And then we have this reaction in the skin. And so many of my veterinary colleagues and so many pet parents are trying their best to attack the skin level, but haven't realized or connected that it was actually at the gut level that we needed to actually be treating to treat the actual root cause, to actually get rid of the symptoms that you are finding so hard to get rid of. So that's why that question of why is the skin inflamed, a very important question versus how do I kill the yeast overgrowth? Yes, we can do it all at the same time, but we need to be looking for those root causes. Now, here's the thing. So if we have this increased gut permeability, we call it leaky gut. This is where those allergens trigger issues that we cause skin inflammation. We can also have that immune dysregulation. So the way the microbes are producing those metabolites, that interferes with the pet's immune system and it makes them more prone to skin issues. So gut inflammation, immune dysregulation, all these things are going to play a part. Now, here's the other thing. This is where it's really important when we start looking at, okay, there's all these interconnected pieces. So you might be like, well, the gut, I've been working on the gut and the gut is fine. But Dr. Katie, my pet is still experiencing these issues. And so you're like, this is not where we start attacking and like trying to like take out the yeast and take out the set. And you're like, I'm just going to, like, my pet's itchy. Let's just take it out. It's got to be a yeast overgrowth. Got to be a yeast overgrowth. We just start like taking things out. Keep in mind, when you use those strong herbs, which they are, there is a time and a place when we use them appropriately. They can also take out the important microbes in the gut. So we can cause a dysbiosis. So we may unintentionally be creating another imbalance that, like, we're adding layers onto the problem that are going to make it harder for you to treat. So here's the thing. If you're feeling stuck, okay, you're like, okay, we've assessed the gut, we've tested the microbiome, we've treated that. The ecosystem is also really important. So there's herbs that we can use like slippery elm, L-glutamine is really important. Using things like marshmallow root. Those are not bad things to use because it creates the ecosystem to help reduce inflammation and support healing. So while you're going through all of this is really important. I love Jay and Adrian are on, the two crazy cat ladies. I think you do need a prescription diet or Apoquel for itchy skin. I think you're on the wrong platform, Jay and Adrian. Love you guys. So glad you're here. This is why Apoquel is a problem. I love that they brought it up. We mentioned it at the beginning, and the prescription diets. We are not treating the issue. We're just like we're shutting down an immune system that is doing its job versus figuring out the root cause for why that immune system was doing its job. So that's why Apoquel long-term can lead to things like cancer, because it's an immunosuppression. And this is why also prescription diets don't help, because they're so low in nutrients. When you read the back of the bag, I don't use them. I don't recommend them. There are much better ways to use novel protein diets if we need to kind of reduce the amount of triggers, calm down the inflammation, heal the leaky gut. That is a thing. That is part of the process of healing and repairing. That prescription diet will lead to nutrient degeneration over time. That's the other key. If we're not feeding the nutrients to create a healthy skin barrier that also create a healthy gut lining, we're going to be stuck, right? So these are things like zinc is commonly deficient. Vitamin D is commonly deficient. Vitamin E. These are all really important. Selenium is another one, all really important for the gut lining, for the skin health, and also supporting a healthy immune system. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people aren't going to like. I love raw food diets. They work really well. There's a lot of myths on those. We've done previous YouTube videos on them. Please check them out. However, if we're feeding 80-10-10 diets and we're not supplementing with certain things for like the iodine source, whether that's a kelp or vitamin D, like a cod liver oil, we're not adding in a vitamin E source. Over time, that can lead to degeneration because we're missing these essential vitamins, minerals, nutrients. And that can then create a skin issue. So like omega-3s. Now, omega-3s, we can do too much. There's other like vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that are really, really important. Omega-3s are essential too. However, we need to keep that in mind because it could also be a nutritional issue that is keeping you stuck. So we need to assess all these things. The microbiome, what diet are we feeding? Are we feeding a highly processed inflammatory diet? Now, here's the other piece to this, right? So we have the immune system we talked about, those connections with the skin. We also know, though, that stress, this is commonly missed. Who here has a dog that gets itchier when they get stressed? Like, and then too, when they start like scratching and itching and chewing, like they can get more stress. And you're like, I feel like they're getting more inflamed. Stress is really, really important. And stress itself, especially when we think about like chronic stress, can actually impact the whole entire endocrine system. So when we think about the HPA axis, so this is the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenal glands. Now, I would also say your thyroid is really important. If your pets still have the ovaries and the testicles, those are all part of the endocrine system. This is really important because what happens over time, especially if we have a chronic stress or a pet that's like really wound up and stuck in what we call a sympathetic overdrive. So this is that fight or flight response. Those adrenal glands are taking the hit. And when we neuter our pets and spay our pets, we are removing a source of hormones that those would naturally produce. Now the adrenal glands have to take over for our spayed and neutered pets. And I'm not saying we should never spay and neuter. However, we need to be thinking about what are the long-term implications of this. So if you have a pet that's spayed or neutered, how do we support the adrenal glands, right? We can use glandular products, whole food products, like herbal forms too, to help support. Ashwagandha is a really great adaptogenic herb that helps manage stress. So these are things you can couple in that you're supporting with like using your gut health supplements and support. And then also too, I use a lot of like whole food glandular products from Standard Process. So if your pet's been on things like Apoquel, Cytopoint, steroids, is experiencing chronic stress, they actually have a canine adrenal support that's going to provide whole food nutrition to support those glands. The nice thing is too, is it's also going to support other systems because it's multiple things in it. It's not just one thing. So we're getting a whole array of other support. The other thing too is I use a canine dermal support, so Standard Process. If you're in the States, I'm sorry, if you're outside the States, it's not available. But keep in mind the principles, right? Whole food glandular products. So this is where the dermal support is giving the building blocks to help maintain or heal a broken down epidermal barrier skin, like the skin barrier. So the epidermal layer, there's a barrier that can become dysregulated too, and makes it more prone for your pet to have secondary bacterial or yeast infections. So if we can use whole food supplements and glandulars like those, we can couple them together. And I love that question, Debbie. They take longer. We are stuck with using holistic medicine and a conventional mindset. What I mean by this is that we expect to give something and expect an immediate response. I can tell you right now that symptom did not happen overnight. It took time to get there for the body to break, for the symptom to even show up. So we have to give time for these things to work. So this is where those Standard Process supplements, when we're using whole food glandular products, I say 4 to 6 weeks, we need to consistently be using it to provide those nutrients to help build those building blocks. Now, here's the thing. With itchy dogs, it is horrible to watch them. And we need to also support them with symptoms, but make sure you are treating and finding the root cause. Otherwise, as soon as you stop a supplement like quercetin, which is reducing histamine, it comes right back. That is really, really important. And so this is where also, so keeping in mind, these supplements are a long-term treatment plan, right? We need to build them up. Now, the other big thing is that we need to use a variety of foods. And this is where we can use food therapy. So we're tapping into the energetics of food. Everything has energy. Even the drugs that you use have energy. They give us a lot of information on where, okay, if we have a reaction to steroids or a non-steroidal or something else, like steroids are very yin. They add a lot of moisture to the body. So if we have a really damp dog, so remember I talked about damp heat. If you weren't with us at the beginning, make sure you catch the replay. This is obviously being recorded. So make sure you check that out. Because here's the thing, if we have a dog that's already prone to like really moist lesions, ear infections, like they're just really gross and moist, right? If we give something that provides more moisture to the body, so has yin properties, when we think about yin and yang energy from a Chinese medicine perspective, we aggravate it. So side effects tell us something about the underlying pattern and imbalance that's going on. So that's really key thing. Keep in mind, like that's where a journal is really helpful. And then I saw, I believe somewhere, someone mentioned like seasonal changes too. Circulation changes. The body is always in like this constant state of fluctuation. Nothing is static, and neither should your diets and the way that we support our bodies. All we have to do is look outside. Right now that we are going through fall here in Colorado, it's beautiful. It makes me kind of sad. The leaves are dropping. The seasons change, energy changes, temperatures change. And so if we're looking at our pets specifically from a holistic perspective, we need to also understand that the food we are feeding has energetic properties to it too. So this is where if we have a really hot pet or a really damp pet, we need to understand, are we feeding a hot protein? So this is where chicken is not bad. I use chicken. Chicken is a beautiful food that can help heal a lot of pets. It gets a bad rap because of the processing of dry food and the way that they do it. The high heat temperature processing of these extruded kibble diets increases the antigenic properties. What that means is it makes it look more foreign to your pet's body. So because chicken is cheap, it's in everything. And so, of course, if we're breaking it down in a certain way to be recognized as a foreign substance in your pet's body, that is why we see a sensitivity. And so chicken itself and its form that we eat is a beautiful food, but it's also a warming energetic protein. So if your pet is like panting, they're hot, they like laying on the cool floor, we want to avoid hot proteins and use more cooling proteins. This is why rabbit's used a lot. It's a very cooling protein and it's nice and lean, and a lot of pets really tolerate it really, really well. It's one of my first go-tos. I'm like, get on a rabbit diet, whether it's a freeze-dried or a raw food or those are my go-tos when we're looking at, okay, let's reduce the antigenic exposure so the immune system can calm down. There's less ingredients in it for the body to have to process. It's taking the pressure, it's removing the resistance from the body to allow it to actually heal. So then when you are using certain supplements and other like herbs and other products, it's easier for the body to heal versus trying to process all these things. And we have all these inflammatory mediators, which is making it it's putting more resistance on the body. So keep that in mind. Now, the stress, this is really important. Once again, we need to be able to assess, like, is our pet stressed? Now, if you're like, no, they're not stressed, I want you to take an inward look and ask yourself, am I stressed? We don't tend to do this, right? I don't enjoy it. It doesn't feel good. But your pet is a sponge. They are absorbing everything that we are doing. Like my cats have been all over me the past like couple days, on my desk, all over, like because we've been away for the Holistic Vet Conference and the Thriving Pet Expo. So we've been away a lot. And they are very social beings. Yes, cats are social, by the way. They don't like being left alone. Don't worry, we had a pet sitter who absolutely loves and adores them. We did not leave our cats alone. Don't do that. But they will pick up on my stress if I am stressed. Sitting on my lap, Moki sits behind me in my chair, Kiwi and Tico sit on my desk. If I am not doing well emotionally, my cats will be like, Mom, it's okay. I'm going to absorb it for you and take it on for you. Now, what can happen is, once again, those adrenal glands get stressed. We have a gut brain axis also. So we need to make sure we're treating the microbiome and looking at the gut too. Remember, all these things are connected. So when we start like ticking it off, the checklist, going through the list. Okay, yeah, are we feeding the right diet? Are we feeding variety? Are we making sure we're getting the right nutrients in? Are we addressing our stress in the house? That could mean more outdoor time and playtime. That's amazing for your pets. Even just sitting and deep breathing with them allows them to actually, they can deep breathe with you. You can actually teach them to take a breath, which is really neat. So as a reminder right now for everyone here, if you're like doing 1,500 different things, I want you to just sit for a second. And it's going to sound crazy, but I want you to take an inhale for 5 seconds. So hold it and then release it for 5 seconds. Now, what you can do is you can do that 5 more times, and you actually stimulated your vagus nerve. It is the biggest nerve in your body, and it's directly connected to everything. That right there, if you do that, we forget to breathe. That is really, really powerful and a free tool that you can use at any time you need to reconnect with yourself, with your heart, with your breath, and your pets will feel it. It sounds crazy, but we live in a crazy world, and skin issues and yeast issues a lot of times come because we're not attached to the emotional health side of the healing that we need to be. And it's commonly missed. And we tend to get focused on what's wrong, what do we need to fix? And in reality, taking a deep breath and centering ourselves and doing a little bit of that work can provide that healing environment for your pet to start healing. Now, we still want to do the other things, but that's going to support those adrenal glands that are under a lot of stress, alongside using those glandulars and whole food supplements and support. Now, I wanted to give you a couple other tools because I know a lot of people are like, can you just tell me what to give, right? And we talked about the things we don't want to miss, the key foundations, those key pillars. We have a free masterclass on that. So make sure you go to our link in our bio or head to our website and check out the free masterclass on how to find those root causes, those root imbalances, because I promise you, there's something still being missed. If you're stuck with recurring ear infections, yeast overgrowth, remember, is secondary. If you're stuck with like an itchy pet, there's something still there. And this is where detox pathways are also really important, because if your pet's got a stuck detox pathways, it's not just about milk thistle. There's more pathways that we need to unlock and open alongside the emotional side and the gut health side and, the nutritional side. Really important. Now, in terms of some of the things that I use to give you an idea, okay, itchiness. Quercetin with bromelain is a great one to help reduce the histamine. It is not your long-term solution, and it's not going to fix the problem by itself. Standard process Antranex is another great one. What it does is it increases the blood flow to the liver to help your pet process histamine and help the detox pathway support better. These can all be used together. And I recommend keeping a journal, making a note, and starting them one at a time, spaced out like 3 days. Now, the standard process Antranex, it is a bovine fat product. Keep in mind your food sensitivities are due to the proteins. So you're more than likely, your pet is able to tolerate those, and it can work amazing for a lot of pets who are super, super itchy. So I recommend using that. The other supplements I mentioned that are going to also support the microbiome, so the gut health environment, the ecosystem, they're going to support the skin, the liver, detox pathways, in the adrenal glands. So we're supporting that stress too, would be something like standard process canine dermal support. If your pet's been stressed or under chronic stress for a really long time, we also want to add standard process canine adrenal support. We need to give an extra boost to those adrenal glands. Really, really important that we are supporting all these systems that are under a lot of stress. It is the bigger picture that a lot of times pet parents are missing, and a lot of my veterinary colleagues. And this is why they reach for the drugs, because they just don't understand these foundations because we're not taught about them. There is a focus on symptomatic care, diseases. That is what we're taught. That is human medicine also. It is a broken system. And you now can do better to help your pets because you know better. And so now we can help them more because we need to make sure we're not missing those. Now, the other thing too is mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms in the standard process supplements. That's why I like it. We're taking a bunch of really great whole foods. They come from an organic farm. I've been out to the farm. They're amazing. They've been around for forever. And the reishi mushrooms are really helpful for supporting the immune system. They can help with allergies. So you can even use button mushrooms. If that's the only thing you can have access to, button mushrooms. All mushrooms have different types of properties that are going to work on different areas of the body. So reishi, though, specific for allergies, immune system. Chaga mushrooms are really helpful for gut health issues that can then lead to your skin issues. I love Real Mushrooms brand. I use them myself. I use them for my pets. I use them for my clients. I love them. The other thing too is make sure we're helping the stress response. This is where I love tea. I love chamomile tea. Everyone has access to chamomile tea. If you can, make sure it's organic. Brew a cup of tea, let it cool, remove the tea bag. You can use that tea bag on hot spots, by the way, so you can use it topically to soothe, reduce inflammation, reduce histamine. But also, it's amazing at helping to reduce stress and gut inflammation. So we can actually mix it into the food and give that a couple times a day. So I highly, highly recommend using chamomile tea to support your pets too. So looking at the bigger picture, we didn't talk about all of the things because there's a lot more we go in depth with our Healthy Holistic Pet for Life Blueprint program, where I help you, I support you while you're learning very in depth the frameworks and tools that I use with the resources to actually fix these underlying gut health and skin health issues. So if you're like, Dr. Katie, I need more support, jump on a discovery call with me to make sure it's a good fit for what you're looking for. You can schedule those by just going to our website or send an email to info@thenaturalpetdoctor.com, and my amazing assistants will help you to get you scheduled through that process to make sure it is the right fit for you. But this is really important. Once again, just as a final kind of reminder for today's coffee talk with the doc, make sure you are asking the question, why? Why am I using this drug? Why is the itchiness there? Why is the yeast infection there? Why does the ear infection keep coming back? Why is really important question, and it will help guide you to figuring out what are those causes, keeping in mind we need to be thinking about the pillars of health. What is going on in the gut, and what is going on with nutrition? What is going on with the immune health? What is going on with the environmental health and detox? What is going on with the emotional health and detox, right? Emotional health and supporting them and the adrenal glands. What is going on with physical health? Is there something I need to adjust or improve, or where I can tweak something to help the body work better? And it takes time. It's a journey. Keep that in mind. And that is a big reason why our Blueprint program is a lifetime program, so that you can continue to get the support, the guidance, and the help that you need amongst a like-minded, supportive, private community of pet parents like yourself. So once again, I see you, you've got this, but make sure you're asking yourself these really important questions. If you're feeling stuck with your pet and going back and forth to the vet for the same health problems, and make sure to check out our free masterclass that goes a little bit more into our Blueprint program. Otherwise, you guys are amazing. Keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep asking the question why, and most importantly, take the action that you need because all this knowledge will not help if we don't start taking action and implementing the things that we are learning. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor, and I will see you all again next week for our next Coffee Talk with the Doc. Take care.